Okay, good morning. It is time for us to go over a very important assignment. I want to make sure I give you some instructions that go along with the written instructions. There's about a page of written instructions for this assignment, and everything that we've been learning about with organelles, their function, the difference between plant and animal cells, how the cells go about the 7 characteristics of living things. All of that is going to come together with this one big, massive assignment. You're going to be spending most of the next week doing your top-notch best work to produce what I call the cell analogy poster. Now this year I'm decided to change this, and since we're working remotely, you won't be drawing out a poster. Normally this assignment takes about a week's worth of time in the classroom to get done, and it's difficult. So I want to give you some instruction on the assignment today so that you're not lost and so that you know what I expect. Lots of you are going to struggle with this, and you know what? That's okay, because learning isn't about just memorizing things. It's about giving thought. It's about using your brain a little bit, coming up with your own ideas, taking new ideas and making them your own. And that's what this assignment will do for you. I've got my Chicago mug. This came straight from Chicago. It's massive. And this is my second one today. So I'm a little bit fired up. Okay, so let's get into the assignment. First of all, do not draw a cell for this assignment. Don't do a Google slideshow presentation that shows me an actual cell. Okay? That's not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in you creating something that is like a cell. All right? So you have to think of something from the real world that is an analogy and presented on a Google slideshow. Each and every one of the organelles needs to be represented in your Google slideshow, and you need to find something that is like the nucleus, something that is like the mitochondria, something that is like the vacuole, etc., from the same thing. I'm going to give you an example that has nothing to do with the cell because I don't want to give you any ideas. I don't want to give it away. I've given one example on the bottom of the assignment sheet. If you actually read it through to the bottom of the rubric, look at the criteria and you'll see. Here's my idea of an analogy. And I think it kind of fits the time and the season that we're in, working remotely and dealing with the COVID crisis. This has nothing to do with a cell, but it's to help you understand what I mean by an analogy. I hope you can see this. I drew this out. This is a picture of a maze. And the analogy that I'm using is that life is like a maze. Life is like a maze. And I know from talking to some of you over the last couple of weeks and emailing back and forth, some of you think it's great to be sitting around at home. And some of you think it's terrible. And life is like that sometimes. Life is like a maze. So at the start of the maze here, every maze has a starting point. That is like what we call birth. When you're born, you start your journey through the maze. And as you travel along, sometimes you hit dead ends. Dead ends in a maze are like mistakes that we make, wrong turns, or maybe troubles and things like that that come our way that we have to deal with. They're things that force us to go back and make better decisions. So here's my analogy of life. Life is like a maze. A maze has a start. In the real thing, life, that starts at birth. A maze has dead ends. That's like bad decisions or maybe troubles, challenges that come your way. Life also has lots of decisions that you have to make. That's like this U-turn in a maze where you go back and you get yourself back on track. And then as you travel through the maze, you continue, and eventually you get to the end of the maze. The end of the maze. And that, of course, is kind of like when you croak, when your life comes to an end. And so this is my analogy of what life is like. Now, what does that have to do with a human cell? Nothing. But the idea is I want you to come up with one analogy for a cell, and everything in your analogy has to somehow fit what you think a cell is like. So there's going to be a real thing, and there's going to be something that compares to the actual organelle, and both of them should make sense. There should be some kind of connection between what you think, let's say, a mitochondria is in your whole analogy and what the real mitochondria's job is. So a real mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, which means in your analogy, you have to find something that relates to power or energy in your whole analogy. Now, I've used those little analogies through and through. Over the next couple of days, I plan to break into the school. I'm going to grab some of the posters from the last couple of years that I've kept and that I showed to students so you can get a bit of an idea. But I want you to get started on it. The most important thing is for you to be super clear on what the actual structures do in a cell and where they're found. Because if you understand what an organelle's real job is, it'll start to get you thinking about your own analogies, and then you'll be able to say something like the example I gave you. Now, you can't use this one because I'm using it, but the example I gave you on the sheet of paper for this year, I kind of got you started. And I said, a cell is like Stanley Knowles School. A cell is like Stanley Knowles School. So you think about the building, you can think about the field, you can think about the people that you see there, and then you can start picking out things. Oh, that's like the Golgi apparatus. That person is like the nucleus. And then you can construct this entire thing. Now, part of what I want from you are visuals. I want you to make sure that your visual is very clear, that you use clip art or real pictures or photographs. Make it visual. That's why we're doing a slide presentation. You don't have to do a lot of words for this, because if you choose your analogies correctly, they should make sense just by me looking at them. Okay? So I hope that helps to clear things up. I'm not going to pull out the easy button on this one because this is not an easy assignment. This one is designed to make you think, and that's why it's worth 150 marks. You're going to look at that, you're going to total it up, and you're going to say, hey, Mr. Newman, it doesn't total up to 150. You're right, and there's a reason for that. If you understand what that reason is, you'll see why. So have a lot of fun this week. The due date is on Google Classroom. Make sure you put your heart and soul into this one, because I expect a lot. I expect quality from this, and I want you to make sure that everything from spelling, grammar, your choice of visuals, the way you lay it out is top notch. So get creative with it, have fun with it, and this will be our last assignment before we move on with the Cells and Systems unit. Have a great week.